Yo, what's good? It's your boy, your man, Randall Barnes, and you're watching a special, exclusive edition of the Randall Barnes Experience video podcast. So recently, I had a chance to talk with the brother Fonzworth Bentley, aka Derek Watkins. If you don't know him, he was Sean Diddy Combs' personal assistant for a while. Then he broke off and started doing his own thing. He was the host of the MTV show From G's to Gents that was popping back a few years ago. He's the host of BET's Lift Every Voice, and his book Adventurous Swagger is a New York Times bestseller. And an even bigger fact, he was one of the producers and writers on Kanye's new controversial album, The Life of Pablo. This was a huge opportunity for me because I'm a big fan of Mr. Bentley, and I'm down for what he stands for. And also personally, I wanted to talk to someone that is successful, that came from the same background that I came from. Middle class home, enrolled at HBCU, and hustled his way to the top. And speaking of hustle, I did pass him along one of my books, The Diary of Aaliyah Anderson, Volume 2. I mean, hey, you got to take every opportunity you can. And he did commend me on my hustle at the end of the interview, so that means I'm doing something right. But in all seriousness, I urge everybody to listen to this interview because he breaks down some key core principles to success using his background in the entertainment industry as an example. And he gave me a dynamic response to my question about business promotion. It was very unexpected, but something that touched me and made me think. So without further ado, here's my interview with Derek Watkins, aka Fonzworth Bentley, Morehouse graduate. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Author Randall B, and make sure to check out my novels, The Diary of Aaliyah Anderson, Volume 1 and Volume 2, along with Review High Circumstances. I mean, Fonzworth Bentley has a copy, so why don't you? Y'all enjoy. Okay, so first of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to do this interview.
Happy to be here.
So you're an HBCU graduate, and you went to Morehouse, and you majored in biology. Now you're a renowned entrepreneur. When you entered Morehouse as a business major, did you expect to be in the position you are today as Fonzworth Bentley?
Not at all. I literally went to college thinking it was 13th grade. You know, it was just the next rite of passage. It was an expectation in the home. I was going to college, and so literally I majored in business just because my father majored in business undergrad. And I got there and saw the chalkboard. I was like, oh no, I ain't doing this for no 4 years. And so I switched to biology simply because I liked the sciences in high school, not thinking any further than any of that. Not thinking about career, none of that. I didn't really look at college as this is something to set me up for my career. It was just the next stage and rites of passage.
So what did you want to be with that degree?
With which one? With biology? Well, so when I started asking around and everybody was like pre-med, I was like, all right, I'll do pre-med. Then I saw blood. Oh, yeah. I was like, no, this ain't gonna get it right here. And so I did excel in genetics, and I ended up working in a genetics lab. And we got a paper published, which was cool, but I definitely realized even then that the research lifestyle from that perspective just wasn't the lifestyle I wanted to live. And this is around the time Dr. Cosby had given $32 million to Spelman. So his youngest daughter was a friend of mine. She was at Spelman at the time. And so when he came down to see his building, this was the first time entertainment felt real for me. You know, I grew up watching The Cosby Show Thursday at 8 o'clock. And so here was literally Bill Cosby, who I saw every Thursday, in the flesh. So it was the first time it felt real. Before it was just like there are people on TV and you can tell they're in different places and there's studios, but I didn't really understand what that concept meant. So at that point, I'll never forget going home and thinking to myself, you know, between Clark, Morris Brown, Morehouse, ITC, all of these different colleges, and I started saying, you know, there's going to be somebody that's going to be a doctor, there's going to be some attorneys, there's going to be some politicians, you know, somebody's going to be in entertainment. And I was like, you know what, that's my spot. I'm taking that spot. And that's when I made up my mind and began to really do my own research to understand the way to get to that goal.
I understand. So you made your name as a fashion icon. Why would fashion be important to gentlemen in college?
Well, number one, the suit is the international uniform for business. And it doesn't matter what you do, that's something that everyone needs to know. And not only do you need to know how to put on a suit, but you need to know how to put on one well. I always say that clothing is language. So before you've opened your mouth, you've actually said so much. And so learning, the fundamentals, which I do lay out in my book, Advance Your Swagger, How to Use Manners, Confidence, and Style, the 15 must-haves of the wardrobe for men and women. You start to understand how to utilize these tools, or I call them weapons, and to build an actual wardrobe versus just buying clothing. And I think that the more you do that, the more you're going to be confident in exactly what you're doing. And as you get out into the professional world, there's no job where you're going to get like a clothing stipend. They expect you to show up and to show up professional. And so there's an opportunity to distinguish yourself as being elegantly appointed, dressed appropriate for every occasion, sophisticated, and ready for the game.
So in saying that, what are some tips for young men that don't really have an expansive budget for clothing, but still they still want to be fly, they still want to be dressed like you dress now?
Yeah, there are ways. First of all, y'all are in a town where there's a lot of old money. So this is where you need to be hitting up the thrift stores. You need to be hitting up the vintage shops. But see, there's a way to shop in a thrift store. There's a way to shop in vintage stores. And one of the things I always say is think about an individual that owns a shop like that, right? That's a special individual. Clothes have stories in them. You can look at your wardrobe now and you think of t-shirts. It was my favorite t-shirt here, or this is that sweatshirt I wore at that homecoming then, and stuff like that. And so when people drop off certain garments, they have stories. And so the way to do that is to really engage with the owner of the store, really develop a relationship. Relationship always comes before opportunity. And so by doing that and starting to get them to understand the different items that you want to have to build your wardrobe, then they say, you know what? Hey, let me give him a call. He was looking for a navy blazer with some gold buttons. I just got one in that's about his size or it's close to his size. Let me give him a call. He could probably tailor this down and it will work for him. And so by doing that, you now get the preferred pieces before anybody else does. But literally, man, you can go in the vintage shop. You can spend $7 and come out killing them.
I mean, because to a lot of people, thrift store is a dirty word. You're not supposed to go to a thrift store. That's poor clothes. You're poor doing that.
Right.
And that's what has been like ingrained in us. We have to have the Jordans and the expensive clothing. And I read your book and I noticed that you had it where it was the formal wear, but also these blazers and different clothes you had can be worn casually. Has that changed with how style has changed?
No, I think that the things that I really outline in the book is about building a wardrobe, and these things are classic. These are things that are never going to go out of style. A navy blazer is never going to go out of style. A cream gabardine trouser will never go out of style. A foreign hand knot will never go out of style. One of the things that you'll see fashion do a lot of times is things will come back and become more popular. The double-breasted suit is popular now. I've never gotten rid of my double-breasted suits, and I've always bought double-breasted suits because they're sexy to me. And so I'm always going to do those things, and they're fashionable and popular now. And so there'll be seasons and times for things like that where things will be trending. But when you really approach it from building a wardrobe standpoint and having the classic clothing, you will never be out of style.
Okay, so I want to go back a few years to my childhood when I first was introduced to your brand. I first saw your video, Everybody, with Kanye West, 2000. And
Yes,
it was just amazing to me. It was after school I saw it. And also from G's to Gents. And that was one of my favorite shows because I'm a young brother that I'm like, wow, like I see somebody on TV that's talking about being a gentleman and dressing right and acting mannerable, the same skills that my parents taught me about being a man.
Right.
So how did that show come about?
Very interesting. So at the time, the production company, 51 Minds, and they're responsible for a lot of television programming that I wasn't necessarily a fan of at the time. Flavor of Love and that sort of thing. It was comical, but I just didn't like the overall overtones that it was sending out, being a black man. And I got a call from somebody who I have credibility with, my friend Adair, who wrote for Russell. And he said, hey, there's a meeting at 51 Minds. I was like, no, thank you. And he said, no, it's with Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx is partnered with him to produce this show. And Jamie and I have known each other for many years, and we've always been trying to figure out something to do together. We have mutual respect for each other as artists. And he, when I heard Jamie's name, I said, okay, I'll go to the meeting just on GP because of that. So when I went to the meeting, I got to be honest, I went in there and sat down with like, okay, here, what y'all want? What y'all got me here for? Like, let me just knock this out. And when they showed me the sizzle reel, I saw that this was something that it looked like they wanted to do for real. It looked like they really had a real intention. We had seen Charm School at that point, and Charm School was a little different. And so I was like, okay. I said, well, listen, it sounds like a lot of the ideals that you all want to conquer or attack on this show, I've written about them. And regardless if you choose me to be the host on the show or not, I like to write on the show. And a couple weeks later, man, they called me and offered me the opportunity to do it. Now, the interesting thing is, 3 days into the show, I go in, putting the hammer down, all of the above, doing things the way I do it because I've been doing the work with the book. The book was already out. I had been doing a lot of that work, in the field, if you will. And the executive producer comes to me and said, the show's not going quite how we thought it was, but, it's good. And I'm like, listen, Chris Abrego is now the vice chairman of Endemol, which is the independent largest production company in the world now. I'm like, you got to trust me on this. I know what I'm doing. If you trust me, we're going to get something really phenomenal here, but I need you to support me. I need you to trust me. See, they thought I was going to come in here and these folks were going to disrespect me for 7 weeks, and then eventually we would turn it and they thought they were going to get a lot of comedy. But they just didn't understand that I came in with a completely different mandate. And I understand that when you meet people where they are with love and put a level of expectation up there, people will actually arise to the expectation every time. And so that's exactly what happened on that first season of G's to Gents. And it was a phenomenal experience. It was a stressful experience because I was like, man, if somebody doesn't have some form of transition and transformation here, there'll be so many kids at home and so many young people at home that'll say, I don't even need to consider any of these ideas because it didn't work. And so there was a lot of stress on me at that time, man. And I'm just very thankful that things turned out the way they did.
I mean, and one thing, as I rewatched those episodes, Creeper eventually won, and that was a lot of patience because he came in, he was scared. So how was it dealing with him from week one? We came in, he was with the glasses on. Then the last episode, glasses off, and he changed. How was that?
I mean, it was a beautiful experience to see that transformation happen. I think one of the things that people get confused with is this is not some process where over several weeks with several different teachings and a lot of love that you just completely make a transformation and that's it. Every day, every moment that you have an interaction with somebody is an opportunity then to decide, are you a gentleman or not? And so, this was about breaking some fallow ground and sowing some seed and to hopefully change the heart of him, which did happen. What I will say is, again, the prize on that show was winning $100,000. There were no systems set up to help people post, but I went, me and another colleague that was a producer, we went, I helped provide a financial advisor for him. And, one of the things we did is it's like, man, if you don't change your mentality or have new information, if I give you $100,000 or I give you $1 million, that's just $100,000 or $1 million, like
to spend.
It enabler check. And so it literally, even with $100,000, it took several months for me to even get Thaddeus Creeper to move out of the projects.
Oh wow!
And it really wasn't me. It was actually we invited him to my house. He was still living in the projects. He was paranoid because everybody knew he had $100,000. He said he was sitting in front of his door with a chopper, not sleeping. So I invited him up to the house, and he stayed with me and my parents and I for, I don't know, I call it 3 to 5 days. I don't remember exactly how long it was, but it was actually a conversation my dad had with him, which his father wasn't present in his life. So a conversation my dad had with him that actually got him to influence him enough to move. And so I got him to Gainesville, which is right there where Florida State is, which, it's a college town. And after he got there, got settled, I went down there to check on him, to see where he was. And, he still hadn't completely, it was interesting because you still have this new idea of celebrity you have to deal with. Celebrity is at very different levels. You have celebrities even at this level in the collegiate level. There's certain people who are just happen to be very popular. So, nothing can actually prepare you for the power of television. So, you can quickly want to get into, okay, let me host a party, let me do this to make some more money and so on and so forth. And, before you know it, if you're not careful, you can find yourself back doing some of the same behavior you're doing before, but it's now amplified because you have money. And so it's been an interesting role for him. The gentleman that won the second season, Mito, has had a very different transition. He went and got married. I went up to his wedding. He and his girlfriend at the time, they were girlfriend and boyfriend. They weren't living in the same house. And then once they moved into the same home, his son said he just turned into a completely different young man, having both parents under the same household after that. And he's had a much smoother transition. But, I've stayed in touch with a lot of those gentlemen and continue to. But the one thing I've found is, again, everybody has to want to do the work, and so it's a process. And the other thing that I have gotten settled with is I'm not the savior. Jesus is the savior. Yeah. So it's not my job to save anybody. My job is to hear what he says to do and then do that thing.
That's definitely something I need to hear about the saving thing. That's something I need to hear.
Yeah, man.
But you said that How to Manage Your Swagger came out before the show. So after the show, how did that help in promotion of the book? Like, did it make it wider? Because essentially the episodes were sort of chronicling the chapters.
That's right. Yeah, it did significantly, man. Like, I went to several different advertising agencies to try to get money to do book tours and do college tours. And people looked at me like I was crazy, like etiquette. Nobody cared about etiquette, and nobody was talking about etiquette at the time. And so what happens is, when the show happened, and the book was obviously on the show, they all got a copy of the book. Then the book became a New York Times self-help bestseller, and I then got some corporate dollars to go out and do tours and that sort of thing. So it significantly amplified, not only the sales of the book, but the capacity and the reach of the book. And people began to grab the book and put together their own forms of teachings based on that. And so, the power of television, G's to Gents was a top-rated show in 40 countries globally. I would see people. I remember in Vegas one time, and this gentleman came up to me and said, "Man, you ought to hear what you sound like in Kuwait." And I was just floored.
Wow.
But he was saying that it's been making an impact. So, it significantly impacted the book.
Wow. Okay. So, how do you market your brand in general?
So here's the thing: when it comes to marketing or marketing and promotion, I have a bit of a different philosophy. My philosophy is God promotes, not man. And so what I do is I actually spend a lot of time in the secret place and spend time with him. And when I do that, things always happen for me, because the way the blessing works is the blessing is on you, which means things are then supposed to come up and overtake you. So when you have the blessing, that means you have a bullseye on your back. That's how it works. And so, for instance, let me give a quick example. Life of Pablo just came out a couple weeks ago, right? And I was, intricately involved in that project. One song, I remember that I get in there one day, their chords, then Swiss Beats started making these drums. I heard tambourine, I go and get tambourines, and anyway, helped produce this record, which became Ultralight Beam, which, I'm the one who brought in Kirk Franklin and brought in the choir and brought Kelly Price, and a lot of the extra hip hop folks were kind of hating on this idea. But anyway, I ended up going with it, and it ended up shifting the complete theme of the album. That's why he changed the album from Swish to Waves. Waves is another record I wrote on with Chris Brown. And then it changed to The Life of Pablo, or Life of Paul. Paul being the Apostle Paul, who's written about 80% of the New Testament. So when Ultralight Beam came in, that shifted everything, right? Or shifted a lot of stuff with that particular project. Well, I'm at home minding my own business. My wife's 37 weeks pregnant, and they're going to go perform this song on Saturday Night Live. I mean, that is live television, NBC, in the hottest time of Saturday Night Live, because we're in an election season. And so what happens is, they're trying to figure it out, and all of a sudden I get a call from Kanye like, "Man, I need you, brother. I really need your help." And so, again, prayed about it, because my wife's like about to deliver something. So when we heard from God, my wife heard baby wasn't going to come to Saturday, at least Saturday. And so I was able to go. And I went to do, he was like, I need you to production coordinate, direct the choir, do the choreography for the choir. And I went to do that, and then I was good. And he was like, nah, man, I need you on stage. And I wasn't trying to be on stage. And there was a time where I was like, oh, I was dying to get on stage, right? But I was there to serve the vision. So he's like, man, I need you on stage. And so I'm like, okay, well, let me figure something out. And when you direct the choir, your back's to the audience. He's like, no, I need your face to be seen. Yeah. This is Ye. So obviously that's why when you go and look at the performance, you see me right there behind, and I'm essentially doing the stuff with the choir, and I'm calling stuff out and that sort of thing. But that was huge promotion, right? And, that led to doing interviews in the Fader and people being like, okay, because a lot of folks, don't pay attention to everything. Like, well, where has he been? Every Sunday I'm on BET at 10 o'clock. But, that was a huge promotion. Now, what did I do to get that type of promotion? I've been in the secret place. That ain't had nothing to do with me talking about I want to do this and and pitching myself for any of the above. And so when you fundamentally understand that it's God that promotes and not man, then you begin to spend your time there. He will do it exponentially better, above and beyond what you could ever think or ask. And literally it's going to be far more significant than you could ever think. And that happened to be my birthday. And because Kirk Franklin was doing directing the choir for Jimmy Iovine on his wedding that Sunday, I had Kim and Kanye book him a private jet. So guess who else was on a private jet headed back to LA on his birthday? Amen.
Okay.
Give me a picture of my life.
Blessings. But one last question. Yes. You brought up the presidential election. You're now hip hop's first gentleman, but it seems like chivalry is dying both on the social scene and also in the election, because Donald Trump is anything but mannerable. So has the idea of being a gentleman gone by the wayside now?
I wouldn't say that. Again, like I say to be a gentleman isn't like you're anointed a gentleman and that's it. We all have opportunities to be and represent the fullness of what that idea is all of the time. We all have to examine ourselves within that. Even me. You know what I mean? If I'm in the middle of something in my head and my wife may say something, I'm like, what? And you say, whoa. Don't wet me like that. You know what I mean? In that instance, I had fallen off the pedal. I had fallen off of the gentleman's swag. You see? And so what I will say is the good guys really do always win. And be careful when you do see people win and it doesn't feel like it's the good guys that are putting them there. They probably didn't put them there, and it's a much harder fall.
Oh, okay. I got you, because honestly, even in a college climate, it just seems like the guys that really want something and that are mannerable and gentlemanly are not looked at, even at a time where we're in college. You want something stable, but still is nothing. A lot of women go for, I can change him into something. So how does that play out? Okay. As far as you have a young man that's going through that, how can he rise through that and be a gentleman?
Well, what I'll say to that is, it's not a sprint; it's a marathon, and a marathon is a long race. It takes a lot of endurance to do that race. And what I found is a lot of times when we're thinking that we're not making progress, and it feels like, well, I'm sinking, like I'm not making progress. See, God has this thing called a slingshot. And in order for anything to go in a forward trajectory in a slingshot, you first have to pull it back. And so a lot of times we might find ourselves in that. And that is the time when you really should be in a posture of thanksgiving and gratitude, because you really can see behind the veil and know exactly what is not only to come, but what is literally in the process of happening. So it's like if you could see the other side and see, okay, you in a slingshot and I'm pulling back right here, and if you knew I'm at the very end of this pullback and I'm about to launch off, you'd be sitting there like this the whole time you pulling back. But when you sitting there and in the pullback and not looking at it from that perspective, despondent, you begin to look at yourself as I'm losing, and you begin to count yourself out. And that right there is nothing but the power of the enemy's suggestion. We have dominion, So when you begin to have that kind of suggestion and begin to own that suggestion, and your actions and your words begin to put out exactly what those ideas are, because that's all he can do is suggest. Mm-hmm. Then you will manifest exactly what you are thinking and exactly what you're saying. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it works. It's a law, just like gravity.
Okay, well, thank you for this interview, and thank you just for being a role model for all the young brothers to look up to, because you touched my life.
God bless you,
and that's why that book is right there.
Yeah, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
I think it's slick the way you doing this. I'm gonna check this out for real.
I appreciate it.
You can hustle with it too.
I'm trying. Thank you, sir.